Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 26th City Council meeting for this evening. There is one error that I would like to bring your, well, no, I don't want to bring it to your attention, but I need to. And that is the pastor who will give our invocation tonight is Rita Richardson. She's pastor of Central Christian Church, not Presbyterian as we put it in our agenda this evening. So at this time, will you please stand and join me and stay standing for the pledge as well. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear God, we give thanks for this wonderful city and the great quality of life we have here in Russellville. We lift up all of the men and women who serve our community each day, and we give thanks for their dedication and willingness to serve. Lord, we ask that you give the mayor, the city council, and others in leadership positions in the city wisdom as they deliberate various issues. May each continue to serve with honesty and integrity and lead and make decisions wisely and in a peaceable and orderly manner. And may all who come before this body be treated fairly and respectfully. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Do I hear a motion in regard to the first item there?
Yes, sir, you do.
And a second.
All right. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. It's this time I'm going to ask Mr. Steve Mallett, General Manager of City Corp, to come forward and present to council his periodic report on the operation of City Corp. And I've got to say, it's my observation that this board and general manager are working to live within the issues associated with Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality and the consent administrative order that they were given some time back. They have worked to not offend that commission and at the same time work to show the efforts that have gone into construction that has been done over a period of time to resolve the issues that are part of that consent administrative order. And I just want to personally say thank you. I think you're doing a great job at this time.
I'd second that as well.
So, Mr. Mallett.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and I do appreciate the comments as well as staff. And on behalf of the staff and Board of Directors, we appreciate the opportunity to again make a status report to you folks. This is the third one since I've been here, and so some of the items will be the same, and some of them will be a little bit different because while some of the things haven't changed, there's a lot of stuff that kind of has changed over the last year and a half. So, and I apologize, some of the words are small enough there kind of to keep me on task rather than you folks be able to see them back there. But if anybody wants a copy of the presentation for any reason, just let me know, and I'll be sure to get them one. So. Just real quickly, some year-to-date accomplishments. Since I was here in January 2014, we filled the CFO position. Hope Penman, been with us for 37 years. She retired a little over a month ago, and Taryn Childers has replaced her, and so far has hit the ground running. Very pleased to have him. Seems to be a good addition to our management staff. You folks are well aware, appointed General Bill Harmon to our Board of Directors. He's been an asset already. Continued construction of our multi-year program to deal with a CAO. So we just continue to march along those lines and continue to address the problems that we have at the treatment plant and the collection system. We began revising our specifications as well as our policies so that we can have a little bit more orderly development with regards to water and wastewater extensions. The board passed a resolution to approve a one-year lease extension. I understand that's on the agenda later on. I think the first item of new business. So we would hope and ask that you folks can consider doing the same. and we have already approved our 2014-15 budget. A quick update on our water system. Our reservoir is currently full. In January, we were down a little over 8 feet through pumping and rainfall. Up to this point, I believe right around the middle of May, we were brimming full, and we've been pretty much full ever since then, so we're in good shape headed into the summer. We placed the Huckleberry Reservoir in service in 1996, and it was projected at that time to serve the needs of the community until 2035. So it's, we're headed up on 2015, so we're 20 years away. So obviously, as mentioned here, our master plan is going to address whether or not that 2035 is still a reasonable time frame, or if we have a little bit more time than we thought. So we're going to revise that number in our current revision of the master plan. There's a picture of the reservoir as it probably is today, with it being full. Treatment distribution for the water system, our long-term concerns continue to include, as I mentioned, I believe last time, identifying an alternate source of water, a secondary water source, and explore any type of regional partnerships can make that possibility. Replacement of galvanized. We have some small 2-inch galvanized pipe still in our system, not a lot of it, but it's probably some of the most porous pipe we have in town, and responsible for a lot of our leaking pipe. And asbestos cement pipe, it was recommended in 2003 to replace all of that pipe, and that is the lion's share of the estimated $35 million as it was estimated in 2003 to replace all that pipe. And we really, we've done some replacement of the small 2-inch galvanized, really haven't even started on addressing the asbestos cement pipe at this time, but that's something we're going to have to do in the relatively near future. And of course, regulatory concerns. We know what we're dealing with now as far as ADH and the criteria that we have for treated water, but that can change from time to time, and we're always aware of that. We have disinfection byproduct rule that changes, so all the disinfection byproducts from chlorine, we'll have to be dealing with that in a little bit different manner moving forward. But I think, again, we're in good shape to do that. Currently, what we're concentrating more on is our unaccounted for water. That's something that every water system across the country deals with. It's currently approaching 15%. So 10% has always kind of been considered the industry standard. Anything over that, you start taking a closer look at it, and we've started to rev up closer to 15 in the past few months, in the last couple of years. And what is unaccounted for water? Well, there's 2 reasons for it. You have real losses, as they call it, and that's basically leaks. That's water that you make, you put into the pipes, and it escapes, and there's basically no use of the water whatsoever. So it's not being consumed or not being used for any purpose. You're just losing that. So you're basically losing the cost of treating and delivering that water. And then so how do you address that? We're in the process of selecting a firm to come in and do a leak detection survey. We're trying to decide whether we want to do the whole system, or just the older parts of the system, or just the metal pipes, or how we want to go about doing that. And then we will prioritize and begin repairing isolated leaks that they find. So that's one way to start that process. And then the other side of the unaccounted for water equation is apparent losses, and that's basically where you make the water, you deliver the water, and the water is used, but for some reason it's not recorded. And that can happen through non-metered use if someone's illegally connected without a meter. Obviously, water's being consumed but not being accounted for, not being paid for. And then we also, through under-registering of meters or dead meters, if you have a meter that's 20 years old and it doesn't register like it should, it may not register any of the low flow and only high flow. So obviously you can improve that situation by replacing your meters, and that's something we're going to talk about a little bit moving forward. Our existing meters are largely past the recommended life. They usually recommend about 10 years for the older meters, and we've got a lot of meters in the ground that are approaching and even past 20 years. So obviously we're assuming that those meters are probably under-registering. Some of them may be only registering whenever you hit the shower or washing machine, but just normal sink usage may not be registering at all. So we're going to do in a process of conducting a study, we're going to test approximately 200 of our existing meters, the majority of which will be residential. A firm will come in and pull about, I think, 180 residential meters out, replace them with a newer technology meter, and do 2 things. We'll evaluate the meters that they take out, see where they're under registering, and based on that, they will create a revenue enhancement model. And basically what they'll do is tell us how much money we are losing, how much revenue we're losing by under registering meters. So based on that, we'll look at the options moving forward, whether we want to go in and replace all of our meters at once, whether we want to just come in and replace a portion of them, and it'll probably entirely depend on the numbers that they bring back. Based on what they've seen and based on the age of the meters in our system, they expect that we could increase our revenues by 2 to 5%, and that could be up, in excess of $1 million a year in additional revenues, which obviously would go a long way to helping. And again, that's water that's already being used. We're not required to do any more to make any more water. It's just water that is currently being used and not paid for. So we will be installing remote read meters at those locations, at those 180 locations, and may ask some of you folks if y'all are interested in volunteering to be one of our pilot sites, because the new meters are ultrasonic. They have certain customer features to it. Down the road, you would be able to go in there and monitor your own usage if you want to, set thresholds. If it peaked past a certain point, it could send you a text message. I'm not sure if these meters and the pilot will be able to do that, but that's one of the things we're going to look at moving forward and see if that's something that we want to invest in. And again, we'll evaluate the options based on the projected revenue based from this sample, and we'll bring something back to our board and most likely the council at some point in time, because it may require bond funding or something that we could pay back in time. The good news is it should pay back in 3, 4, 5 years, and we would receive the benefits past that. Moving on to the water treatment plant, none of this has changed since the last time. We're still rated at 20 million gallons a day. Historically, our peak demand was in 2012. June of 2012, it was almost 13.5 MGD, so there's still some capacity there, obviously, so we're not too concerned about that at this point. Our peak production all of last year was only a little over 11 MGD, and we have not approached that number yet this current year. And again, our reservoir is designed to deliver 40 million gallons a day for 120 days. So when we get to a bottleneck or we get to some improvements, it's going to be at the plant before we would need to do anything at the reservoir. But obviously, being able to expand your plant is a lot quicker and easier than going out and building a new lake or a reservoir. So the planning periods would be much different for both of those. As the mayor mentioned, moving on to the wastewater system, our consent administrative order that was issued in November of 2009, ADEQ has recently notified that we failed to meet a deadline of July 2012. And again, they didn't bring that up until this year. I believe EPA got involved, probably was reviewing the file and challenged ADEQ as to why they haven't addressed that with us. And so ADEQ, in my opinion, I think they were kind of forced to deal with it. The best way to deal with it was to amend the CAO. We have done that. They moved the deadline to 2016, which coincides with all of our other deadlines that were involved with it. I'm not sure. I wasn't around at that point. I'm not sure why that one was different. But it wasn't anything that everybody didn't know about, but for whatever reason, they chose to come back at a later date and deal with it. So all of the wording in the administrative order amendment was fine. The only thing that was not fine that we didn't appreciate was a $20,000 penalty, but we did negotiate that down from $61,500. The original penalty was $61,500. Based on the efforts that we had made, obviously all the work we're doing at the plant now is to address and to achieve that deadline, so it's not like we ignored it and weren't doing anything. We were just, we're not going to be able to meet that deadline. So currently it's in the public comment phase, and we expect an execution date in early July. We do have till 2022 to meet compliance with all of the criteria in the CAO, most of it being collection system rehabilitation, and we've started those projects. So in addition to the almost $13 million we have under contract for the plant going on right now, we have our consultant has estimated up to $30 million needed to address the collection system over the next 10 years. Now that's an estimate, and a lot of that work hadn't been done to define what those projects are, but that's a guess at this point, and I believe we've already spent about $4 to 5 million of that 30. So we've already started the process to make the repairs that have been identified. So that totals over $42 million to be spent over the next 10 years in the wastewater system, and by comparison, again, the reservoir was $20 million, so almost more than twofold the size of the largest project the city corporation has had to date is what we're facing now. A couple of projects that we've got ongoing and complete. Obviously, I believe I mentioned this one last time. You can see that the water tank at Skyline Drive is complete. On the left was what it looked like a few months ago, and on the right is what it looks like now. If you've had a chance to drive by there, you probably noticed it. This is the large project at the wastewater treatment plant. You can see on the left is the construction of a third clarifier, and on the right is the construction of an aeration basin, and all the plates in the bottom are just air diffusers. The pipe, the air goes through the pipe, and it basically bubbles up and treats the treats the waste stream. This is an example of capital projects, and I'm sure you can't see that far, but we've completed 3 projects to date. 23rd Street Pump Station, we eliminated one of our pump stations, which is always a good thing. East 2nd Street, we replaced the wastewater line down it before it was paved, and other various pipeline replacements. And I'm not sure you can see, but the method being used below, there actually is cast in place pipe. The inner lining of the pipe actually comes out of the back of that truck in a flat form, but it's hollow, so they put that into the pipe and they use hot water to force it up in the line, and you can see what it looks like when it goes through a manhole. It's basically just a lining of the interior pipe, and then the last picture is where they go in and cut that out. So if the pipeline is not deficient to the point to where they can't, if it's offset or something, they can't use this, but if the pipe is just porous, but it's still fairly good structurally, they can just push a new liner through it, push hot water through it, and basically all they have to do is go in and retie the connections to the houses. But it's much better than having to dig up streets and yards, and it's becoming just as effective price-wise as some of the open cut is as well by the time you figure in pavement replacement. So the other thing, obviously one of our big ticket items we had last year was support for utility replacement relocation for the street projects, and the 3 that we probably had the most to do with were North El Paso, Phoenix Overpass, H&M Parker. We spent a total of about $1.3 million on those 3 projects, and glad to do that. Budget update, our capital budget for this year is $3.8 million. If we spend all of that $3.8 million, we will be down to the minimum reserve level set by the board. The board has established a minimum level that they're comfortable with keeping in our coffers, and if we spend that entire amount and stay at budget, which I'll show you later, we've kind of trended upwards of that, so hopefully we'll have a little bit more money available. But if we spend that and the budget stays true, we will be right at the minimum level set by the board of directors. So we've fortunate to have a little bit of surplus funding over the last couple of years, but at the end of this year, we will have taken that down to a level where we need to make some other improvements. And the capital budget from 2015 to 18, so the next 4-year period is estimated at 40.8, or the needs are estimated at 40.8 million, almost 21 million in additional wastewater collection system improvements, 9.5 million in water treatment plant expansions and upgrades, and almost $2 million in water distribution piping replacement. And that's just the first step of the 35 million that we talked about earlier. And so while we're identifying $40.8 million worth of needs, we're estimating we're going to generate about $7 million in capital funds over that time frame. So obviously there is a deficit there that we'll have to deal with. Then past that, long term, there's probably $50 million in identified needs. The remainder of the wastewater collection system improvements, probably around $11 million. And then there's the item for the AC water pipe replacement of $35 million that we will obviously have to do over time. And then a little over $4 million for fire flow improvements that have been identified in the last master plan. And then none of that includes an additional water source, future wastewater and water plant expansions, or the possibility of an outfall line to the river as an alternate to one of the plant expansions. So what are our funding options? I'll run through a few things we've talked about and actually implemented. Obviously, you can increase your revenues and decrease expenses. The thing I mentioned earlier about replacing all of our meters could increase revenues by 2 to 5%, generate more than $1 million. Now, granted, there would be probably a 4 to 5 year payback period before we would realize those additional revenues, but we should enjoy that additional revenue for 10 to 15 years after that. 2013-14 budget versus actual, our expense budget, I'm very proud and pleased to say that in 2013 to 14, our budget versus actual came in at 8.6% decrease, so we improved by $540,000 on our expense budget. And then we followed up this year with an even better year. Again, we budgeted over a little more than $6 million through May. We've only spent 5.41 through May, which is a savings of $700,000 or 11.4% decrease. We also are enjoying a $200,000 increase in revenues, so we're projecting at the end of this year we're going to be about $1 million better than budgeted in our net income, which again, that's a big help and a big boost, and very thankful that it's not the other way around, and have staff to thank for cracking down on some of the things that we were spending money on. So hopefully we'll continue that trend. Obviously, we can modify our wastewater and water fees. Most of the fees we have on the books right now haven't been modified since the 80s. A trip fee, most of our trip fees are $7.50, and it's probably tough to pull out of the parking lot for that. But we feel that the fee should offset the cost of providing service to that individual customer, because I'm talking about trips that are originated by a customer or services that are originated by a customer, because right now all the other customers are subsidizing meter taps, shut-offs. Any trip that we make out that we're charging $7.50 for is probably costing us more in the $25 to $30 range. So what they're not paying, everybody else is absorbing. So we're going to come back probably next month, if not next month in August, for recommended fee revisions, so that the service that these folks are requiring for their individual purposes will be covered at their cost. So that we do plan on bringing something back where we've almost got that ready to present to the council probably next month. A couple other ones, obviously, are bond issue. The only debt we have on the books right now is the $9 million bond issue from '09. Any additional bond issue would likely require some kind of fee or rate increases, but again, that would totally depend on what size bond issue and how much rate tolerance we have now. And then obviously there's the option of sales tax. We could look at extension of the current sales tax, but that's 7 years from now, or possibly a separate sales tax campaign, which I assume is not very likely. So. Just in summary, we will continue to monitor our expenses. We're going to look at the revenue enhancements from the meter study. We're going to look at the customer-originated fees and probably consider a bond issue by the end of this year, or else our capital budget will take a major cut next year. So we're going to have to look at some way to fund that. And again, the rate study is currently underway. That's going to consider the effects of everything that I've mentioned and come back and tell us what the impact on our rates may be with these different options. And obviously that'll help drive the decision moving forward, and again, we would bring all that to the council before moving forward. So looking ahead, we're going to continue revising our standard specs. We are currently working with ATU, the Emergency Management Department, on developing our emergency response plan. Excited about that partnership. Our ConAgra contract, we operate their pretreatment plant, expires in 2015. We're working on that. The engineering department, Lance Bartlett's here tonight as well. We're going to bring our modeling capability for water modeling in-house. We haven't been able to do that in probably 15 years. And we're going to obviously continue to focus on our unaccounted for water and keep that on the front burner, and then develop a plan for funding our capital needs. So in closing, again, appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you folks, present an update on what we've got going on. I want to thank the council and all the folks at home and all the customers for giving us the opportunity to provide the community with water and wastewater service. Are there any questions about any of that or anything that maybe I didn't mention?
Think you could just leave one of those dead meters in front of my house?
That's kind of the flip side. If you do volunteer for this, it's possible if you've got a real old meter that your bill may go up a little bit. So there's a flip side to that. So.
Can I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
When you said you spent 1.3 million or something to move the utilities when we're building streets, do you get reimbursed at all for that? Is that just an expense?
No, ma'am, we didn't. But I will say that the city did pay for a portion of the utility relocation. It was more of a partnership. I know on H.M. Parker, we spent around $600,000 to relocate the sewer. The city and the funds that were in the road project paid for the water part of it, which was a great help to us, because we would have obviously we would have had a lot of trouble coming up with all the money to do that. So I worked with Michael, and we were able to do a partnership on that. We did pay for all of the water and wastewater line relocation on El Paso, but there's still some things that he was able to do to kind of keep that project within the bounds of what we had budgeted. So there's no reimbursement. I guess the only people that would be reimbursing us would probably be the city, and we have not and don't intend to ask for that. It's just most of the area was area that needed to be replaced. We don't have a whole lot of areas that really could argue being replaced anyway, so we just moved those areas up on our priority list.
Well, you guys are nice people. Thank you.
Well, and you folks are too, so we appreciate y'all.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Mallett. Good report. We appreciate that update. Look forward to future ones. I have one more item on the mayor's report at this time, and I've got to say that as a military commander, one of the most rewarding parts of that job was to present a military award or decoration to a deserving soldier. Now, I can't do that in this job, but I do get the same pleasure in recognizing accomplishments of city employees. So at this time, I do want to call something to your attention about one of your city employees. And with that, I would like to ask Miss Kathy Collins to please stand with me at this time. Now, pictured here on the right is Miss Kathy Collins, our city clerk, Russellville's city clerk. Along with her is Miss Sandra Smith. She is a certified clerk with the Certified Clerks and Recorders Association. And she presented Miss Kathy Collins with her certification for this position while we were at the Arkansas Municipal League meeting last week. And that was done on the original or initial night of the summer conference. This certification involves over a year of intensive study, on-site coursework, and peer evaluation to be able to receive this certification. And it allowed Kathy to improve her skills and to enhance her position and ability to do her job. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to make this announcement and this presentation to Miss Kathy Collins. Please join me in a round of congratulations. Say something.
I would like to say that if it wasn't for the support of this council, this mayor, and other employees, that this would not have been possible for me, and I greatly appreciate all that support.
Well, thank you, Kathy. All right. Financial report. Mr. McCollum, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Financial report for May. Let's see if I can go backwards here. Switch over. Thanks. All right, general fund. Revenues were $1,018,408. That's 2.2% above our year-to-date projections. Sales tax receipts for the May was $748,293. Franchise fees and permits were $70,094. Our general fund expenditures were $1,211,920. That's 1.5% above our year-to-date projection. We had $193,512 receipted more than expended for year-to-date. Street fund operations revenues were $226,138, 1.28% above our projections. Sales tax receipts were $152,549. That's 3.6% above our year-to-date projections. The new sales tax, $42,537. Street fund operation expenditures, operational $217,622. That's 4.3% above his year-to-date projection. Sales tax expense was $836,813, and those were spent at Parker and H, Phoenix Railroad, and the Corps of Engineers Project 205. Economic development revenues were $11,694. Of that, $8,276 was the new sales tax, $3,418 in interest. Expenditures were $3,130 for marketing. Capital assets Revenues were $976,931. $2,205 was interest. $518,136 was new sales tax. $458,000 was a general fund transfer for capital projects. Expenditures were $101,009. Of that, $16,546 was transferred to City Corp. $5,537 for parks, $148,935 for police cars. That's my report. Any questions?
Any question for Mr. McCoy? Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Holstein.
Yes, Mayor, Council, I'd like to give the community development report through the activities through the end of May. We had 69 residential permits with fees collected at $6,065.31. 43 commercial building permits with fees collected at $28,518.08. The estimated cost of construction for residential and commercial was at $23,409,849. Electrical permits were 113 with collections of $4,756.50. Mechanical at 66 permits with fees collected at $3,640. Plumbing permits were at 61 with fees collected at $2,814. This required 508 inspections with a total year-to-date collection fees of $47,647.30. Moving on to businesses, we have gained 57 new businesses in 2014 with a total fees collected of $54,137. I'd like to give a short summary of code enforcement since they weren't able to give their report last month. Since the beginning of the year, Code Enforcement Office has opened a total of 640 cases in which we have closed 570 cases. Out of those, 86 were opened in January, while 76 were closed. 56 were opened in February, while 47 were closed. 103 were opened in March, with 92 closed. 199 were opened in April, with 169 closed. And 149 were opened in May, with 85 closed. Also, I'd like to do a small report on facility maintenance. Facility maintenance has started a new program on Dashboard, which allows all the departments to be able to email in to facility maintenance and get their work orders done. We've really been a reactive position at this point with facility maintenance. It's fix it when it breaks type scenarios. This year, at the end of next month, we're going to employ one more employee for the facility maintenance position. Hopefully that will give us a more proactive approach in this facility maintenance program, a more of just a preventative maintenance type direction to go, a fix it before it breaks direction. And at this time, that's about the end of my report. I'm real short.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Holstein? Thank you. Good report. Other committee reports. Finance Committee, Mr. Horton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we met twice this month. The first time was on the 10th, I believe was the date on it. We came up with a list of appropriations. I think everybody was at that meeting, so I'll direct your attention to the first line, $17,000 for a camera system. We're going to push that decision back to July while we gather some more information on that. But the rest of that list, equipment, the $35,000. Jerry, what was that one for, Mr. Mack? Tractor. put some money in the fire truck fund, vehicles for the police department, and a vehicle for the airport. The Finance Committee voted to approve that and recommend it to the full council. We do that now in the form of a motion.
You have heard the proposal and the motion. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 2, we recommend to the full council that we appropriate $5,000 of sales tax money into the Aquatic Center Fund in case any administrative expenses arise, just to have a little bit of money in case something comes up. We recommend that in the form of a motion.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We did another appropriation from the Capital Parks Fund, $33,000 for Hickey Park, $41,000 for Russellville Trails. That is for backstops and to match a grant that we got for Orbit Lane. We recommend that in the form of a motion.
You have heard the recommendation. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The committee recommends $7,000 for the water expense that we expect to have later this year for the soccer fields. We recommend that in the form of a motion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor of that recommendation say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. McCoy bid out our city accounts for deposits. We recommended continuing our banking services with Centennial Bank on that. That's in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We met again tonight. We passed 4 appropriations. 2 are capital. We have one for the police department for some furniture. A pass-through to City Corp for a 2005 Chevy pickup that we sold in our citywide auction, and some money to the Police Youth Academy. Those are items 1 through 4 in your packets. The committee voted to pass those as a group. If it's the council's pleasure, we can divide those out, but it was recommended in a group in the form of a motion.
We have a motion on items 1 through 4 in that regard. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Our 5th item is a line item transfer, moving some money around within the city attorney's accounts to match what he needs to do to pay his assistants, pay for personnel. We recommend that in the form of a motion.
You have heard the motion, the recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Items 6 and 7, we passed together. We can split those if the council wishes, but it's authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter an agreement with eCivis, Grant Research and Management Services. I think everybody heard that discussion. We can go into it further, but the Finance Committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 8, we had a discussion on the capital improvements project extending Reasoner Lane. There's no money to be appropriated at this time, but we had the discussion and wanted to put it in the record. And item 9, Mr. Irwin, remind me, was your number on that 6% even?
Yes, it was.
The Finance Committee recommended that we set an interest rate of 6% for installment payments from a person that we had a lien on their property for cleanup. And the committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And that is all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stuber, is there any report from the personnel committee?
Yes, Mayor, we did meet, and we have 2 items here for your consideration. The first one is amending the personnel policy, uniform and personal appearance policy, and that's here in your packet. And the second one is consideration of a request of approval to change the civilian position to a certified police officer. The chief has his evidence room person is presently a civilian, and she's moving on to a different job elsewhere, and the chief wants to replace that person with a uniformed police officer because, he says that a uniformed police officer can do other things that a civilian can't do. And at this point in time, there's no additional cost. Isn't that right, Chief? There,
Are you making that
Yes,
in the
yes,
form
I'm-
of a motion
yes,
for
I'm-
these
I make
two
both of
items?
those in form of a motion. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
You all have heard the motion. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, that's amending ordinance. We're going to have to suspend the rules.
Okay. On the one, that will be
Number one.
amending an ordinance on number one there. So we will have to take
Suspend.
back one step and amend that by asking for,
Suspension
So
of the
moved.
rules.
yeah,
Let's
suspend the rules. Mhm.
Read one time by title only.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Martin Irwin seconded.
Was there, who seconded it?
Mr. Irwin.
Mr. Martin Irwin.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
An ordinance amending sections of the City of Russellville Personnel Policy Manual and for other purposes. This ordinance passed would amend the current City of Russellville Personnel Policy Manual, which is approved by ordinance number 2091. It would amend it regards to section V, paragraph 5, page 38, concerning uniform and personal appearance. A copy of the amendment is attached thereto, incorporated by reference.
All right.
Move we adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. There is,
Call the roll.
yes. All those who have made that vote, go ahead, Ms. Collins, and call the roll.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Martin Irwin.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Motion to approve emergency clause.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the emergency clause.
You have a
Second.
second?
All right, we have a second. Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Collins?
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, lady and gentlemen. There is no unfinished old business for this evening. New business number one. Consideration of a resolution to extend the lease agreement between the City of Russellville and City Corporation for the City of Russellville's wastewater and water system.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. New number two, consideration of discussion of establishing an event permit, et cetera. At this time, I would like to table this particular item and bring it back next month. There has been a tremendous amount of work placed on this, but more is still needed. And before presenting it to the council, I would like to have a few more questions that we have ironed out. And so we'll table that until next month. New number three, consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning code, section 3.6, fences, walls, hedges.
Make a motion that we amend the rules. suspend the rules and read one time by title only with a short explanation.
Second. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules as noted. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Attorney.
An ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of Russellville, Arkansas, ordinance number 1966, and for other purposes, which ordinance if passed would amend the current zoning code, Article 3, Section 3.6, subsection 3.6.1 regarding the permitted heights of fences, walls, and hedges. The amendment would be such that the front of where a wall, fence, or hedge would be located would be on the periphery, which is the property line as it abuts the right-of-way, the city's right-of-way. However, if the periphery of the edge is within 10 feet, then the fences, walls, or hedges that are proposed to be built in the front shall not be closer than 10 feet to the edge of the street, the actual physical street.
All right.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this amending the zoning code. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Is there any reason for an emergency clause on this? Mr. Stuber? what is-
Probably not. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is she gonna call the roll?
Yeah.
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Sid Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you all. New business number 4, discussion of a structure located at 1204 East Elm Street. I provided you folks kind of a chronology prepared by Community Development, and this has come before us on more than one occasion in the past.
We have a
The sad-
probable, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm just going to say the sad part of this, the city has been trying to do the right thing on this and give some of the neighbors in this subdivision and some of the other builders and sellers some relief on a problem that has existed prior to February of 2012. And it continues to drag on. Now, I know you started to make a comment
I
there,
was just
Mr.
gonna
Irwin.
say, you know, this has been going on for 2 years, or thereabouts, it's got a negative effect on the neighbors. So, what, you know, my suggestion is that the bank give us some reasonable notice prior to receiving a commissioner's deed from the clerk of the court, so that we may then put it on our agenda and take some appropriate action at that time. And I think we probably ought to be able to come up with some fairly rapid timeline at that point that will result in some positive outcome for this situation. But right now, I'm not sure we can do anything except wait on the court.
Mr. Smith, do you have anything? I understand that we received something from a creditor in regard to this today.
Right, and I think it's their timeline that they've worked to show from their end of the matter, and the representatives from the bank are here. If there's any questions or anything, or they may be able to flesh out that timeline concerning this foreclosure that's currently proceeding on this house.
Mayor, what's the end game? Just to get it cleaned up and get it taken care of and finished?
Well, yes, I think if you look at the photographs that were provided as part of this package, there's been
Yeah, I know.
a long effort in in getting anything done. You know, I'd hate to be the neighbor that bought a house, kind of, you know, the American dream to own their own house, and they're sitting next door to this thing and have had to put up with portions of it flying off in the wind and landing in their yard, and them having to haul that off or do something with it themselves, plus just the eyesore condition of this thing for the length of time that they've had. And we're trying to come to a good, quick solution for these folks as quick as we can. And I know there's some concerns, financial concerns, but by the same token, those same financial burdens are upon the neighbors around that area as well, because it does impact their property values and the ability of builders in that particular subdivision to sell what they are trying to build and make a living with. So,
And, you know, you'll know within 30 days or at a minimum of when there's gonna be, a commissioner's deed, and
Certainly.
isn't that right? And at that point, there's gonna be an owner who's motivated to complete that structure, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And so I just ask that we be notified within 30 days. I think we get it on the agenda, and then maybe we can maximize the motivation involved to get that thing completed, because it doesn't look to me like it ought to take very long with enough resources.
I might interject something. Somebody else have a
Yeah, I
question?
guess, you know, the thing that occurs to me, I'm just asking a question if there's a double standard here. You know, we've had citizens stand before this council with very little money available to them, asking for additional time to restore their property, and the council denied that. Here we've got a financial institution that's got a stake in it, and the council seems to be a little bit reluctant to act, and I just wondered if there's a difference
No,
of
sir.
standard here.
I
in the
think
way
that's
that
the
it's
incorrect statement of the fact that this is involved in, there's a foreclosure going on here. We could choose to become a party to the foreclosure and spend unnecessary funds, but I'm not sure that we can do anything.
We don't,
And I'm not sure we wouldn't have done anything had somebody else been in foreclosure either until it was settled.
there's no owner right now
Yeah.
to fix the property, Richard. The bank doesn't own the property. The bank has a security interest in the property. It doesn't have the right to go onto that property and finish it out.
The bank is taking the steps to become the owner.
That's
Correct.
right.
Let me make something clear, and I know it goes back to what Mr. Martin Irwin said about, you know, trying to come to this point of having a commissioner's deed. Now, the document that we got today has a date in here about this commissioner's deed of November of this year. And then it will be subsequent to that before anything gets done.
Well, I think
We're
that's-
talking about another,
No, I think that's the date that we're looking to.
well,
looking
that'll
at,
be the day that ownership occurs, hopefully. But then to get this thing done, we're
Right.
starting
We're
over
looking
again
at-
with another 6 months.
I think, I'm not sure that we need to go 6 months. In fact, I think what we might ought to do is amend our ordinance a little bit and give like 60 days. It's been a dadgum eyesore for
Yeah.
long enough, and we've got an ordinance that deals with this. We ought to, if we can't work with it, then we ought to fix it so that we can. But I don't see any reason why 60 days isn't enough time to get that place.
Sealed
Going.
up, and the exterior
I'm
and
not looking at,
all that
I'm not
completed.
suggesting we give a lot of time. What I'm suggesting is that we receive notice so that we can take action as rapidly as possible, and then, we ought to give as little time as we can that is reasonable enough to get something done on it.
I agree with
Well,
you.
what do we
What is
want
the
to get
bank
done? That's what my
requesting?
question
That's-
was.
We're wanting to get the house finished. That's what we're wanting to
what
get
is
done.
Give them 60
One
days?
at a time, please, gentlemen. Let's do this orderly. Mr. Stuber.
Well, Mr. Irwin was wanting to know what we want to get done. I mean, we need to get the house finished. Now, Mr. Darrell Enos, it's my understanding back on April 18th, said we're still shooting for a completion date of September 2014. You know,
right.
that's, huh?
That's what Mr. That's
Well,
what,
can we not maybe put windows in it and outside doors? I mean, how long have they had a mortgage on it? Well, you know, this is something that's been sitting there for 2 years. No, I hadn't been on Half Moon Circle.
Yes, we have, Mr. Tarpley, and we have had discussions and are taking action on that as well.
Mayor, if you don't mind, my question is, what is the bank asking of us?
well, what I came here for tonight was to.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, sir, Mayor. I'm Bunny Bullock, and I represent Rivertown Bank. I'm their attorney. And what we have done is, what happened was Mr. Neiman kept trying to make arrangements with the bank that he was going to finish the house. He reneged on what he was telling us, so at that point on April 3rd, we sent him an acceleration letter that we were going to foreclose. You have to give someone 33 days notice on that. As soon as we did that, we started the foreclosure complaint, which I have put on here for you, which is May 13th. As you can see, there are 11 defendants. All of those people claim to have an interest in the property he has on our note and mortgage. We've gotten service from everyone, and the court has set it for the end of August. At that point, what we would like to ask to be done is, like Mr. Irwin said, you know, give y'all notice as soon as we get the deed, but we don't have an ownership interest. I can't walk over there any more than any of y'all can and finish that house. We did get Mr. Neiman to put a roof on it, and Rivertown Bank went over there and we cleaned it up. We spent $1,500 this summer, and what we intend to do is keep the yard mowed and done during this pendency. But what I would like to ask is that the house not be torn down. That's what my understanding, y'all were going to tear it down. We have a good foundation, a good roof. I think I had sent proof of that, and someone would probably like to live there. The bank intends, if we get at the sale, which normally Rivertown Bank redeems the property, that we intend to get it finished. We've already talked to some people, some construction people, about finishing it, so we don't lose our investment. If y'all tear it down, whoever buys it is going to have to start from scratch, and you know, there's no guarantee, but we intend to finish it.
So from November 1st, what are you requesting from the city?
Well, at that point, as soon as we get our deed to the property or figure out who the owner is going to be, which I suspect it's going to be Rivertown Bank. I don't know who is going to want to bid in front of us to purchase it. It's a large note. If you can see, it's over $340,000. I don't know who else is going to redeem or buy the mortgage. Then 140. That what we would like to do is be allowed to continue our foreclosure and then proceed. If
Are you
the
talking
only
60
option,
days, 90 days, from November 1st?
what Rivertown Bank is trying to do, and this is what I had discussed with Trey, if not before the 18th, we would have to join in the city as a defendant in this lawsuit and let the court decide to try to put it on hold until that time. And that's what I'm here to try to avoid doing, is adding another defendant, and it's all being down in the court hearing. That's what I had talked to Trey. If we could have a guarantee that it's not going to be destroyed before we can get the decree entered.
We
So if
don't
you
have an
take
owner
ownership
right now to
on
do a rehab agreement with.
But if you take ownership
Correct.
on November 1st, are
You
you
got
asking
one,
for
but he's
30
not gonna
days,
sign
60
it.
days,
No,
90
no, no,
days?
I'm sorry.
No.
Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this one at a time. I don't think we can be cognizant.
We can get the outside buttoned up, but 30 to 45 day period.
Which-
And then we would work on the inside to try to get it completed. So we've got the mortgage on this subdivision. We want this house sold as much as anybody does.
We have a rehab agreement that as quickly as we have an owner, then we can, they can enter into the rehab agreement with us. And then, you know, they'll have specific benchmarks to meet. And what I was saying is it's a 6-month rehab agreement right now. And, it's, you know, there's not any reason that, well, and they're motivated to finish it. But at that point, that's about the only thing we can do is when we have an owner, we can ask them to enter the rehab agreement with us. And if they don't, we can pass a resolution. And 30 days later, if it comes down, they're going to enter the rehab agreement with us. Period. That's our remedy. That's what we can do.
Y'all
If I
talk to
may-
the builder, do you have any timeline on completion? I know November 1st is not set in stone, but let's just say November 1st, there's a deed.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have that information with
No.
me. Ms. Fowler had talked to them. She just told me she had, that they've already taken and talked to some people. But we have just as much as an interest. We have a mortgage on that area too, and we want the property to sell for as much as possible. We want all the properties protected also.
Just for my clarification, in these photographs from April, the house wrap is loose, looks like it's torn. I'm assuming that's probably what's ending up in the neighbor's yard.
I don't-
As a neighbor, I wouldn't be happy with that. Is it still in that state?
It has been mostly secured. I think the latter pictures in your package show that has been secured. The spoil from the blocks, et cetera, has been removed. The bank did take care of that, and they did mow the lot, but it is rapidly approaching needing mowing again. But this, I can see this being this time next year before this is resolved. I just hope that we have some better way of dealing with something like this as we go forward. And that's all I've got to say
I
about
think that's
this
about all there is.
discussion, unless anybody else has anything to say.
Mayor, when did you say you were you'd own this place?
As soon as the clerk of the court sells it on the courthouse steps and we can put in a bid, we have to wait about 10 days after that, and then it'll go as soon as I can get it to court.
Approximately,
I
when's
would
that
say
gonna be?
approximately around the end of October.
And we can get, you'll know when that is, and you'll provide us with enough notice
I'll
to
let
get it
Trey
on the
know
next
immediately
agenda.
as soon as I
Okay.
get something. I can let Trey
Okay.
know.
All right, we will monitor this and ask that you provide us any updates that come along in this process between now and that time, please.
Thank you very much.
All right?
Would it be all right then, when I hit these marks that are numbered, because I've got 11 defendants in it, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. As soon as we get the court date, I will get back with Trey.
Yes,
Great.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
please.
Appreciate it. Thank you all so
Anything
much.
else on this last item?
Mayor,
Anyone?
are we, since they say no one owns it, are we assuming that someone's gonna keep this yard mowed and
Yes,
clean
Rivertown
up in
Bank
the
is going to
entrance?
keep
Yeah,
the
they
yard
said they'd
mowed.
do that.
Yes, sir.
The bank said they'd do that.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Anything?
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
Sounds good to me. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.